What's going on? Joshua Smith here. I'm with the Home Agent Group. It just means that I'm a licensed agent in Tennessee and Alabama. If you are looking for content about the real estate markets in these areas or just real estate in general, this is maybe a channel you can subscribe to, follow. I am today going to cover though a market report that's specific to one of the areas that I serve, Middle Tennessee. There's a few counties around Davidson, which is where Nashville is. Basically, Nashville is almost all of Davidson County, but it's a very diverse market. There's a lot of different price points and things. So quite a bit to cover, but we'll try to stay focused on a few of the specific points that I like to cover in these videos. Let's dive in, shall we? What's up? My name is Joshua Smith. I'm with the Home Agent Group.
I want to talk to you about what you're up to and how we can expand together.
I'm gonna be honest with you, and you can cut this in.
That's the highlight of our entire trip.
Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this April 2025 market update, and this is from Realtor. Realtor is the MLS for this local area. Let's pull up the timeline. All right, so Davidson County, Sumner County, Wilson County, and Williamson. Search. Ooh. Here we are. Okay, so big price point difference across these different areas. Average sale price is a fun number, but it's not relevant to that much, except for looking at how value is increasing or decreasing over time. We're staying roughly the same. This is over the last year, not going up or down really. Man, this time versus April last year, yeah, everybody's kind of in the same spot. Now, let me look at the last 3 years at least, just to get a little bit better perspective. Okay, and if you go back even 5 years, where are we in value? Well, we've gone up from the last 5 years, even from the last 3 years, but it's doing this. And the reason that it's doing that and continues to do that, just waver, is because interest rates are making it more prohibitive for buyers to buy homes. I think point blank, that's the reason why we see unstable markets across the US right now in terms of real estate. Market activity, yeah. All right. These are the humps we're used to seeing. Boom, boom, boom. And it looks like we did have a little bit more activity in the beginning of this year versus some sharp number changes month over month. April 2025, we had a 4% decrease in new listings. This is houses going on market this month versus last month. Davidson County is going to have a lot more listings. Williamson County is going to have a lot higher prices. Generally speaking, Sumner County is going to be a good even keel market. I feel like it's a really healthy market. You can see how this is trending and going in those nice little humps. The dips are the winter time. This is a market that gets cold in the winter, just like the weather, and warm in the summer, just like the weather. But I have seen see this decrease for Sumner County versus April 2024. You see that we were at 646 new on market this time last year. Where are we at now? Come on, give it to me. 583. So a little bit less, and a decline from last month to this month. So condos seem to be getting hit by the most by this lack of activity on the market. I have seen, just in terms of activity, in terms of actual sales, let's go with new under contract. Yeah, so we're seeing a decline everywhere or just stagnation. You know, Wilson County seemed to have stayed about the same, but Davidson County came down and so did Sumner County from last month. We had some really nice increases that made it look like things were going in the right direction. But right now, I think it's probably because of a lot of just uncertainty in politics, which we're not going to talk about, uncertainty in just the world and economy in general, wars and all the other stuff that we're living through in 2025. That's what we're looking at right here. So, yeah, really similar humps. Now look at this, new under contract. See how high these numbers were back. This is 3, 4, 5 years ago. There was a big decline from 22 to 23. in terms of just activity, people actually buying houses. That was one of the reasons why I think we had a big impact, especially in these summer months. For these summer months to have such a decline right here in all of these markets, which was not consistent with the previous years, especially in Williamson and Davidson County, where we see most of our activity and growth, for those to sharply decline as much as they did last summer makes me nervous about this summer, because I really feel like we've already dropped down lower than where we were in April of last year. And April was when we started to see just a major decline throughout the rest of the year. So I think that we are probably going to have a healthy number of listings on the market, because we do have a lot of listings on the market right now. In fact, why don't I look at market inventory? Yeah, way up from previous years. Just continues to climb. People do want to sell. People need to sell. I think it's a great time to purchase if you can swallow those closing rates and not closing rates, those percentage rates, because you have the power to negotiate and buy what you couldn't buy 2-3 years ago right now. So if you have any money saved up, or even if you don't, look at the lending options that are available for whatever that amount is. There's 3% and 5% conventional loans, FHA products. There's 100% conventional loans and FHA products. The lower the income, the more the products, right? So if you have a reasonable credit score over 500, you can get some really good loans to get into a home right now. And you know, with as unstable as pricing has been over the last couple of years, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know what things are going to look like, but I like to think, as an optimist would, I like to try to be an optimist. I like to think that things are going to get better eventually. Maybe not right now, maybe not next month. Now, the mortgage rate system is not the same as retail rates. I've covered this in a lot of market reports in the past, but just remember that if you're looking to buy a home and you're watching this because you want to kind of know what's happening, or you're looking at this because as a seller, we'll talk about that in a second, these rates are not tied together. Retail rates are not the same as mortgage rates, but they're impacted by some of the same things because of investors buying these bonds that are needed in order to hold mortgages by the banks. That's a really complicated thing I'm not going to get into. I'm just not qualified. That's out of my purview. What we're going to talk about, so sellers. So right now, for sellers, not a great time. I don't know that this is a buyer's market. I don't know if I'd qualify it that way. If that's a subjective thing, then I would lean into it being more of a buyer's market, just based on my opinion of what's happening. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good time to sell. You just have to know, if now is the time you sell, what your long-term plan is going to be, because there may be a few things you can do to give yourself a little bit more time if you don't have to sell exactly right now, like leasing the home that you own, or borrowing on equity to make improvements to try to increase value before you go to market. You know, you could do an $80,000 addition that could gain you $180,000 in value on your home, kind of thing. Those numbers can also be a lot smaller and still impactful. A $5,000 change remodel could give you $30,000 in value, just depending on what you did and how you did it. And, you know, I always recommend hiring licensed contractors for things, but if you can DIY some stuff and save some money, brother, go for it. Sister, do what you got to do. You know, I'm all for it. This wall got blown out recently, and that's a soundproof wall, and I did basically all of that myself. Quite literally all of this part myself. The rest of it, I had other contractors and people help me out. So I'm all about it. Raise your value. Give yourself some extra square footage where you can. But all that said, not necessarily a bad time to sell. You just have to, again, put your plan together and figure out where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck based on investments that you could potentially make right now, or if not, investments that you can make to like reinvest and grow your value a little bit. Maybe you can, again, just lease it out, a house that you own, or just take that hit and try to get as much as you can, because you might be worth a little bit less today than you were 2 years ago. But if you've owned the property for longer than that, you're probably a lot higher in value than you were 3, 4, 5 years ago, for sure. Next, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at January. Months of supply was significantly higher. So the months of supply numbers that we're looking at here are based on how many sales are happening and what's on market right now in inventory. This is how many months it'll take to sell the inventory we have today, right? Or as of April 2025, last month. It's gone up from the month before. It's also gone down quite a bit. It looks like Sumner County went down. Davidson County went up though. Wilson and Williamson County. People are trying to move, liquidate, and do things. Again, it's a great time to go be a buyer out there. The months of supply back in the wintertime, this is like the inverse of the market activity report that we were looking at just a little bit ago. These raises are going to be in the winter months, and then when it goes down, when the inventory drops, the months of supply drops, is when you have just a lot more activity. Our months of supply has gradually been going up. Inventory dropped quite a bit, which is why I think in 23, from 22 to 23, it stabilized a little bit and kind of came back down in terms of months of supply. But it did raise in these summer months quite a bit, where it should have been lowering more in these months right in here. Back in 23, 24, same kind of thing. I would love to have seen this month of supply go down. And because it didn't, we just saw a bunch of people go off market around the wintertime, around the turn of the year, just to reset days on the market, and then come back on in full force. What is this, January? Probably, yeah. In January, we saw a big spike in inventory, which again was good. And the months of supply went way down. I think if you're thinking of selling, it's not a bad time to sell. Again, I want to reiterate that. The more inventory we have and the more options we give buyers to purchase, the more buyers potentially will buy. Does that mean that you're going to find the right buyer right now? No, you can sit on the market for a couple of months at this point. Let's look at days on market. Just for sellers, like, it's a lot higher than it was. We're talking like, what, under 10 days for a lot of these months back in 21, even in 22. But see how much this went up in 22 to 23. And then it didn't come down to less than 20 days on market anywhere, just about, for a couple of months here in 2023. But yeah, dude, it was 20 in Davidson County in June. Whew, that's like the lowest number of days that whole year. In Williamson County, it was 40 days plus. These are average days on market. What's the median days on market, not average? Yeah, similar kind of thing, a little bit more of a consistent trend, because yes, some days, some of these markets, some of these homes, especially condos, have been sitting for far longer. Average list to close, 163 days back in 2021. For Sumner and Williamson County. Man, those numbers are high. Price points did change quite a bit. They went up a lot in some of these markets. 2021 was a really expensive time to buy just about anywhere. Yeah, these humps look a little bit more consistent in here, but like, these are high numbers. Big difference between the average list to close, the median list to close. There's a big difference between the median list to close and the median days on market. So days on market is how many days it's on market before it goes under contract. This is how many days from moment it enters the market, lists on market, to when it closed, right? So list to close. These numbers are, everything's over 40. For most markets. So in fact, we're not really that far out of scope right now from where we were back in 2020, 21. If you look at it, I mean, it's about a month difference, which is a long time when you're waiting for your house to sell. But I don't think anybody should be in a rush to decrease pricing right now. The listing rules that I had 3 years ago are out the window at the moment. My rule of thumb used to be 10 days on market with no showings, you got to reduce your price. 10 showings without any offers, got to reduce your price or change something. You know, this rule of 10 kind of applies to a bunch of different standards, but these days it's more like 30. If you're on the market for 30 days, depending on the market and how many days on market, the average house it looks like yours in that specific area. And then if you haven't had any showings within that window of time, whether it's 14 days or 30 days or whatever, that's the number where you need to definitely reduce your price. All of those metrics right now, totally different. It's a different landscape in this market today. It's good to see the list close. You know, it's down from the wintertime. We still haven't gone down as far as last year, but I'm hoping because these haven't increased that much between last month and this month, that maybe May will provide some lower days on market. With what I'm looking at here, it does look like we're gonna have a really similar year to what we had last year. Unfortunately, you know, longer days on market. Hopefully people can hold out on their price points, and so we don't see sales that pull price points down too far. You know, if your house is on the market for a long time, it might be time to go ahead and make some of those updates that your realtor wanted you to make that you decided not to. Improve your curb appeal, update your photos as the year goes on. If you listed back in December of last year, you should be putting out summer photos because it's the summer now. You should be updating your photos every couple of months because we live in a place where seasons change. If you live in the desert and it never changes, I'd say still update your photos. If you're not staged, try some virtual staging. A lot of different tips and tricks you can do to help sell your home faster, better. Yeah, I guess that's it. All that stuff is content for another video another time. So hopefully I'll see you again in another video in the near future. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.